So often, we plan a worship set and we spend most of our time focusing on the song set, the different songs that we're going to use, which parts can flow from one song into another, and where we're going to spend worship. Where are we actually going to seek God today? Sometimes we focus so much on the music side of things and even on the spiritual side of things, and we actually forget about people's emotions, the highs and the lows that also flow out of us when we're engaging with the creator of the universe. Moses climbing the mountain is a great picture to think of when we're thinking about getting into the presence of God. On any mountain, there's a slope up to the top. If it's too steep, you can't go any higher. After you reach the top, you need a good slope down so that you don't just drop off all the way to the bottom. It's the same way with praise and worship. The Bible says that praise is the gateway to worship. Psalm 100 verse 4 says, "Enter his gates with thanksgiving. Go into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name." So praise is the starting place. It gets us off the ground. It gets us into a slightly higher place, and we start to think less about where we've come from today, from the pressures of life, from the work, from the kids, from all of those things. And it helps us to start thinking about where we're going, about the top of the mountain where God is. When we've reached the top and we've spent some time there, we then take the path down. Not like the path we came up, long and, whatever, and not straight down either, like a base jump straight off the top. Just a smooth one where, we land properly, calmly, still respecting and reflectively thinking about where we've been. Now let's think of our songs for a second. It's not like listening to the radio where each song is its own story. Each song is its own mountain peak. You have the intro, you get to the top of the song, and then it finishes, and bang, it's the end of the song. Each song on a radio track is a mountain in itself. And if we're not careful, praise and worship can feel just like that. We need to think about our worship set as one flowing set and think about the hearts of the people who are coming with us today. Where are we going to start? What's our first song? Where are we going to worship? Where are we going to sit and rest? What's that section in which worship song that we're going to stay there in God's presence? How best do we tackle this mountain of our praise and worship on a Sunday? When we're singing our worship songs and our praise songs, we don't have to sing every song from the beginning to the end just the way it's written, like on the CD, 5 times, verse 1, verse 2, all the way through. In fact, we can just sing it a couple of times. We can find the bit that we really like, that everyone really likes, and we can stay there and have some fun. And then when we think about our second song, we can roll straight out of our first song into the best part of the second song and keep going. We don't need to start at the beginning of every song. We don't have to sing the bridge of every song. We don't have to sing, the outro every single time. It's also important not to go against the natural flow of a song, not always be mashing it up and making it unrecognisable. What can happen then is that people won't know where you're going. And instead of having a natural flow, people are left jerkily following behind and not able to take a step until you do. People like to know what's coming, not just blindly pushing behind you into a bush wall ahead. Remember, the idea is to make it easy for people to follow you, make it enjoyable to be in God's presence. Now it's time to transition between praise and worship. One leads into the other. Almost think of a mountain where it's got one peak and then it leads up into the next thing. Well, we've gone up one high side in praise, and now we need the, changing gears and getting into the mountain of worship where God's feet really is. What song are we going to use to make the transition smooth? We don't have to stop praise and then start worship. Instead, we should find that great song, that transition song that can be done as, a praise and a worship song. And then we play it as is needed to cross over from praise to worship. Have you ever got halfway through a long worship set? You've sung your heart out. You've climbed up a mountain and down a mountain. And sometimes it's happened 3 or 4 times. And now we're ready to sit down. We're tired. We're exhausted, in fact. And then the band starts playing another song from verse 1. And they go into the pre-chorus and everything else. And then guess what? They go into verse 2. And we instantly want to shut down. We've had it. We're knackered. Then, after playing through this song again, he ends up starting on verse 1. You're going to have people taking their kids out to the toilets. People are going to say, you know what, I'm out of here. I love to worship, but sometimes we get lost in our own little world and we actually forget there's a whole congregation following us with kids and grandparents too. You'll always have those guys that will climb to every mountain in worship no matter what you do. And you're also going to have those guys that no matter what, they're going to sit down after the first song. But we need to be thinking about the whole. How best can we get as many people as we can onto the mountaintop in worship today? Let's reach the peak of worship together. Let's find the songs with amazing areas to just free worship on. Let's dwell in God's presence. Let's find the quiet time and wait there for God, basking in his wonderful presence. And when the time is right, let's start to head down the leeward side of the mountain again. Let's take our people, our congregation, gently down the other side. Let's not just pull the plug, go, right, worship was awesome, thanks, everyone sit down, because suddenly people have been soaring with the Lord and the next thing that happens, they find themselves lying on the ground face down. They're going to be in shock. And even if you're rushing into the announcements or whatever other busy agenda is demanding of you, people are not going to be with you yet. We need to be aware of the time that we've been given as a worship leader. We need to stick within the time constraints that we've been given. It's a privilege to be a worship leader in church, and we need to honour that. And we also need to honour the pastor who's asked us to serve in that capacity. So please, as we're putting our worship sets together, find the balance between great praise and worship as well as the time limit that you may be asked to minister in. With more practice and experience, this really does become simple. It's a simple process. We think of two mountain peaks joined by a transition song. Getting into it easily, landing nicely. How does it work together as a whole? If we can keep that one concept of a mountain together, we can take as many of our people from our congregation into the presence of God who wants to come, and none are going to be left behind because they can't keep up. God bless, and I hope you have a great time with your team this week. Cheers.